Welcome, everyone. My name is Darren Woods, president of 365 Christ-Centered Leadership. Our mission is to equip the local church with coaching, resources, and training to establish and maintain its healthy and efficient operation. I'm excited about today's topic. In the webinar today, we're going to be talking about AI in the church. Is it okay or absolutely no way? And this is a topic that's near and dear to me because I have changed my approach and changed my attitude in terms of AI use in general. I happen to be a literature teacher by profession, but I've also embraced the ways in which it could be useful in my role as a deacon and church executive. So my goal today is to hopefully help move the needle a little bit with regard to what you may be thinking about AI in a church, particularly as church leaders. I think it has a place. And even if it's something where you begin to think about it slightly differently. If I can't win you over, of course, that's my goal and hope. But if I can't, at least I'm hoping that there can be a method of you thinking about the intent and benefits, because as a church leader, there are opportunities to help you become more efficient in your time and assist in your workload for little to no cost in terms of the resources. So as we start, I want to open up with a question for you, and feel free to type in the chat. I want you to type either okay or no way. What are your thoughts about AI in the church? Okay or no way? What are you thinking? All right. Marnie says okay. Any other thoughts in terms of AI in the church? Deborah, yeah, great point. Okay, if it's managed. And I appreciate that because it has a lot to do with not only the using, but also the intent and the frequency. So we're going to be talking about those areas as well. So I appreciate your comments there, Deborah and Marnie. So for today, I really want to talk about three major areas that I think impact our conversations about AI in the church, whether it's okay or no way. So one of them has to do the considerations. What are some things we have to keep in mind with regard to the topic of AI in general, but also specifically AI in church? Secondly, what are some benefits as well as some cautions that we need to consider? Because AI is amoral, it's neither good nor bad. It has to do with how it's used appropriately or not appropriately. And then thirdly, I want to point out some of the best use cases or uses that I have found helpful to using AI in the church. Again, one of the things I'm hoping to help you see is the ways in which AI can actually benefit your church ministry in ways that perhaps you have heard about, perhaps ways that you have considered, or ways that you haven't considered at all. And throughout the webinar, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat and I will respond to them as we move along, and also stop occasionally as we somewhat reflect upon information that I've presented at that particular point. So considerations, what are some considerations in terms of AI use in church, and particularly as a church leader? One of the things that I want to impress upon you is this idea of creativity, right? And by the way, there's a reason why I'm leaving best use cases at the very end, because we can sometimes fall in love with or reject the different modes of technology. But I want to have a firm foundation in terms of a number of these areas. So one of the pivotal ones, the consideration that often comes up, and quite honestly, one that I struggle with as well, is this notion of creativity, right? When you use AI, is it something that you provide credit for someone else's work that you are changing, you're altering, you're modifying, you're manipulating, if you will? Or is it something where you are creating it completely on your own? As a literature teacher, one of the things that I talk to students about, and it's true in the church world as well, is this idea of plagiarism, right? You don't want to present something that is created by someone else as your own. And so, this idea of creativity with regard to AI usage certainly is something that's a conversation taking place in the world of graphics, like AI graphics and pictures and things of that nature, and whether or not they should be submitted to contests alongside of the work that was originally drawn or created by an artist. That's an important consideration, even with regard to using AI in the church. The other consideration, it has to do with either credit or copyright. So I mentioned earlier the extent to which you should provide credit for work that was originally done by someone else and that you added information to, or whether it is something that you create on your own, and whether or not that should be something that's copywritten. Now, there's a lot of conversations in the world of AI and the world of the church in general as to the ethics behind whether, how, or if you should create something completely AI generated and copyright it, sell it, and present it as your own. And although that's a huge conversation to have, I just want to touch upon a couple things about that. Number one, I want you to think back to it's hard to believe Microsoft Word in terms of the template approach, right? Where you would open a Microsoft Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, and you would choose one of the templates, right? The blank template, the template with a particular theme, an animal theme, or things of that nature. And it will already have pre-populated information. It would have the title, it would have the area for a subtitle, and it would have graphics, and you would go in to that document and you would add it, you would change it, you would copy slides, you would delete certain slides, rearrange the order of slides. There's a similar principle with regard to AI from the standpoint of credit or copyright. Another consideration, and this is the one I think is really at the heart of what it means to use AI in a church, and that has to do with whether it's legitimate use or use because, quite honestly, you're lazy. If it's legitimate use, maybe it's something that you do in order to, or as part of your job description, your responsibilities in a church, a task that would normally take maybe 1 or 2 hours to complete can be substantially reduced based upon using AI with some prompts and some scripts and things of that nature. Those I would consider to be legitimate uses of AI in the church. And again, we're going to talk about some use cases. But the cautionary tale, quite honestly, is making sure that you're not using AI because, quite honestly, you're lazy. You waited until the last minute, so you're procrastinating. You're not quite sure of what you want to do. And so you're struggling to put together something and it's not really cohesive. You don't really own it. You just use AI just because it's the thing to do, or you heard people use AI. So those are some considerations with regard to using AI. I'm curious, put it in the chat if you will. What are some other things that you're thinking about as we're talking about considerations for using AI in the church? What are some of your thoughts? Not everyone at once. Well, let me ask this question. Have you used, okay, all right. Thanks, Martin. Let me go back here just a second here. Marnie says, it's helpful to use as an outline. I get it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Deborah, just to get ideas about what you need to do. Absolutely. We're going to be talking about that as well as a starter, if you will, right? I mentioned before in terms of the template approach and rough drafting and things of that nature. Okay. All right, perfect, perfect. All right, let's talk now about some of the benefits and cautions to using AI for your church ministry, because there are some things we need to really talk about, because there are some pros, and I won't necessarily say cons from a perspective of not doing it, but awareness of things that you perhaps have not considered, or maybe you have considered. So let's talk about some of the benefits. The first of which has to do with efficiency, right? And I distinguish between something that's effective versus something that is efficient. Effective means that you're doing tasks, or tasks are performed. But efficiency has to do with maximizing both the human as well as the financial resources that you have in terms of numbers of people to do a task, or the finances to do that. So one of the things in terms of efficiency is, or the benefits, has to do with helping with repetitive tasks. So if you are a Sunday school teacher, if you are a small group leader, and you're responsible for developing different lessons or coming up with different lesson ideas because you meet every week or every few weeks or once a month, etc. Yes, it could be something where your church invests in software or invest in materials of a ready-made, pre-made curriculum. But AI is also helpful because once you begin to understand the broad topics and things you want to do, it helps save time to spend more efficiently on, you're really digging deep into the lesson rather than you trying to determine what book or what verses or what theme or what title you want to have or create. I mentioned before in terms of it helping efficiency in terms of human resources. Perhaps you attend a smaller church, and it's not. I'm not disparaging smaller churches, but I'm simply saying sometimes the logistics of having enough people, volunteers, teachers, etc., may help determine your use case of AI for your particular ministry areas. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of some of the benefits of using AI in a church has to do with the ability to summarize large pieces of information and actually analyze it. This idea of data gathering and data analysis in church ministry is a game changer. It's not just a luxury. It's not something to talk about. It's actually something that needs to occur on a fairly regular basis. Again, this can depend upon the frequency in which you have events or activities or ministries that are both short term and long term. We often don't take the time and have the opportunity to reflect on information, but also summarizing large documents. And I'm going to show you a software I use that enables me to really synthesize information in literal minutes that would take hours and hours to do ordinarily. So those are a couple of benefits I thought of in terms of using AI in a church work. What are some ideas you all have? What are some benefits that you guys may be thinking of in terms of this particular area? Are there some ways in which you have either used AI or heard people use AI and they said, hey, wow, it's a great thing to do? Let's see here. Marty says, I use it to help come up with activities for a retreat based on the chosen theme. Absolutely. That is a fantastic benefit there. I would imagine it saved you time. And again, if you're in the school of thought that says AI, absolutely no way at all, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit and say, and I would imagine, Marty, with what you said, that I mean, you already mentioned in the comment that there was a particular theme. So it's very targeted in terms of the AI use that you use. You already had a theme in mind, maybe even had an idea of the amount of minutes or time for that particular activity. So you were already pinpointing something that would have saved you time. And I don't know, I didn't attend the retreat, but I would imagine people enjoyed the activity as opposed to looking at it and say, oh my goodness gracious, I don't know if this was AI generated or not. I don't know if anyone would necessarily have asked that question. So great, absolutely fantastic. All right, so what are some cautions? What are some things to consider? And I boiled it down to two broad categories, but I really want us to drill down on the rationale and justifications for these things. Because as I mentioned, AI usage is amoral. It's neither good nor bad, but how you use it is definitely something to consider. Not only the intent, but along with intent you would have the possibility of the unintended consequences, right? The unintended consequences. So privacy rights. When you're talking about using AI, you have to consider that there are various state and federal laws involving privacy rights. For instance, this webinar is being recorded in a number of different, I use a number of different mediums. One is Ecamm Live, which is the software I'm using for this seminar, but also in Zoom. And if you have attended any Zoom session involving a recording, you will hear that notification asking your permission for the session to be recorded, your awareness that it's being recorded, and your consent for it to be recorded. So there are a number of different privacy rights you need to consider, because this is not something that is to be used very nonchalantly, as if somehow or another people are just supposed to embrace what you're using. There needs to be some thought behind how it might impact individuals' privacy. And that can be in the form of identifying individuals by first and last name, any other demographics, by race or culture, employment, their location as well. We often don't think about the metadata that drills down, and it can help determine where a person is online or where they're participating. So these are some considerations with regard to AI use, particularly when you're bringing other people in a live streaming environment like we are now, or webinar or podcasting. But there are also some privacy issues that are more refined that I won't really go into today, but just know it is a consideration, right? The other caution is dependency, or I would almost say addiction too. I mentioned earlier about making sure that the AI use in your church is something that is connected to your leadership responsibility, and it's not something that you do because you're lazy. You don't take the time. We often say, I don't have time to do certain things. Is it really a matter of not having the time, or is it not taking the time? So this idea of dependency means that it's the first thing you go to, right? So let's say, for instance, you are a small group leader, and your responsibility is to plan a particular brainstorming or warm get to know you session, right? Is your first response, oh, you know what? I don't have any ideas whatsoever. I'm just going to let AI do the work. AI is useful, but it's not the end all and be all. There needs to be a grounding and understanding of what you want to do, what your objectives are. And AI, along with any other technology, is a means to an end. So if you're beginning with the idea of, I'm going to use technology, and because I'm going to use technology and AI specifically, it's just going to be a wow factor. People are just going to love whatever the work is, whatever the activity is, whatever the curriculum planning is. I'm here to tell you that you will be sadly mistaken. So you want to make sure that your overall understanding of AI is that it's very targeted, is very strategic, and it supplements what you're doing. It supplements what you're doing. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts in terms of some additional cautions that you have, or things that you think about that might be hindrances to maybe even why you have not used AI, or maybe not have considered using AI? So earlier, Deborah, you mentioned, to research Bible verses to correspond with information given. Absolutely. Absolutely. Marnie, depending on what you're looking for, it can give you. Yeah, that's right. AI is an emerging technology. It's being trained, if you will. So I want you to imagine the various engines of AI. And they're different engines and different operating system and brands or rebranding or companies that are really delving into AI. But you're right. There's some information that is absolutely positively not correct. And I'll give you an example of that. I was teaching a lesson for my seniors and we were reading poetry, and it was a lesson that I intentionally used to create AI, right? And what happened is there was a poem written by Nikki Giovanni, and I asked AI to create study guide questions and to write a one paragraph analysis of that poem. Now, my intent was and I actually had my students answer the questions and then write their own paragraph analysis. But after they did that, I asked them to evaluate the effectiveness of the AI creating that analysis. And it's interesting because the AI picked up information or used incorporate information that was just not right. It was not accurate whatsoever. So yes, you have to be mindful and careful about AI. One of the ways I think of the benefits and caution of AI is I can't help but apply this because I love to cook, and one of I think my signature dishes is spaghetti. And I'm very particular about how I cook the sauce. And I'm not going to name the brand of sauce I use because they're not sponsoring me, so I'm not gonna throw them a lifeline. But there's a particular brand of spaghetti sauce I use, and I purchase the flavor that's meat flavor that has the meat in it. Now there's another brand of spaghetti sauce I purchased in the past and use, but I have to add a lot of ingredients to that. You know, my mom uses this phrase that she often has to doctor the food. That basically means supplement the ingredients. So I'll purchase this particular brand of spaghetti sauce that has meat flavor, but I'm going to add my garlic salt. I'm going to add my onion powder. I'm going to add my paprika. I'm adding my oregano. I'm adding a dash of hot sauce. I add some ketchup to this pre-packaged, delivered, store-bought spaghetti sauce. I want you to think of AI from that perspective, where it's a start, but you add things to it, you add information in a way that makes it manageable to your particular use case. And so that might be helpful for you to consider there. Yeah, Deborah, it saves time, but you have to. Yeah, so that's a great comment. I'm going to actually put it up here because I don't want to misspeak here. It saves time, but you have to have good knowledge of your product. AI can be very broad. Absolutely. And I will confess that in our conversation today, I'm using AI in a very broad way. But when we talk about some use cases, I'm going to drill down a little bit more. All right. Okay. So we talked about some benefits and cautions with regard to AI. I want to delve into some use cases here. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the most important things to keep in mind ultimately is, what is the intent behind using AI? How could this be something that you use in your church as an effective way to help with your job, your responsibilities, but by the same token, making sure that it is really within the spirit of what you're doing, and it's not something you're doing just to do it, just to fall in love with it. So here are a couple of use cases with regard to that. And I'm going to pause occasionally because I want to hear. I want to read your feedback, your response. These are a couple of areas. When you think about AI use in the church and how I use AI with regard to my responsibility, it boils down to two broad categories. One has to do with transcription and clips. And what I mean by that is transcribing words from either audio or video, and clips a means through which you can use AI to generate a number of different clips that can be used on social media, on Instagram, YouTube Reels, LinkedIn, a number of different cases as well. And it's the means to which I use the information for webinars and things of that nature. In fact, after this video, I'm going to create some transcriptions and clips from this webinar. The other use case has to do with organization, ways in which you can gather your thoughts, you can brainstorm and use AI to help generate conversations with small groups, within small groups. All right. So I'm curious, as we're moving forward, what are some use cases that you have heard about in terms of AI in the church, or use cases that there are things that you embrace in one way, shape, or form? But I'm going to start with a couple that I found to be very helpful. The first of which is Zoom. I mean, at this particular point, Zoom is the standard, if you will, right, for webinars and meetings and things of that nature. And so I want to point out a couple things, and that is, you notice there's this blue diamond shaped icon right here. When you're in Zoom, this gives you access to the AI companion. Now, to be fair, this is not available for the free version of Zoom. This is available for the paid versions of Pro and above. And when you click that button, if you're in a meeting, you'll see the notification to start AI companion for this meeting. So in essence, what you're telling the computer to do, or Zoom to do using AI, is to take minutes. Now, this is very helpful, particularly if you do not have someone identified to take minutes during a meeting. Maybe you don't have a church secretary, or maybe you want to have a quick meeting with a few individuals in your church and you want there to be minutes. Now, I will talk about some cautionary tales that we have to consider here, but I just want to lay that out as a use case. All right. Well, one of the things that people may not realize is there are a number of different templates within the AI companion suite, which will help train the AI and help create minutes that are specific to different use cases. So you'll see if you're having a one-on-one meeting, if you're having a brainstorming session, if you're having discussion points, if it's a lecture or summary. So I've actually used this particular method with regard to minutes being taken when there are things that I want to highlight in meetings I've had with an individual. But here's the thing. Here's why it should be a caution. Remember earlier I said it's important to make sure and be aware of privacy rights and privacy laws. This AI companion within Zoom is absolutely positively something you do not want to use if your meeting on Zoom contains any confidential information or potentially confidential information about a particular member, about a staff, about a volunteer, or anything else. You do not want to use this AI generation in terms of meeting summary if you're going to talk about cases involving unethical behavior, or even cases where you are addressing particular members in talking about things such as hiring, salary, discipline, things of that nature. You don't want to use that for that. And the reason is because there are laws, and even though you may think it's quote unquote no big deal because you're talking about this in a meeting, it's not the sort of thing that you want to have recorded, because it's going to be stored in the cloud or on a local computer. And once it's available in the cloud, it's available. So again, that's a cautionary tale with regard to using the AI companion for minutes for Zoom, but only if you're going to be discussing confidential matters impacting, again, members from your church, staff, volunteers. But if it's, hey, let's get together and plan a church picnic, it's absolutely positively awesome, because it, in addition to summarizing the meeting, it actually has summary notes for each person based upon what they say. So in our meeting, in a Zoom seminar, you have your usernames, that are mentioned. So if I were to say something in the minutes section that emails to everyone in the meeting or to just the administrator in a Zoom account, it would show Darren Woods, and then below that things I said or summary of things I said. It would say Deborah Gibson and the things that she said. It would say John Smith. And so that's another benefit and reason for using this particular AI, because it doesn't just summarize the meeting, but it summarizes what each person said or groups of individuals that were said. So again, that's a use case in terms of Zoom. All right. The next one is a software I use, and it's called Descript. And if you can upload a document in an email, if you can select text or copy and paste text, you can use Descript. Now, what Descript does is it creates social media clips, but it also transcribes video and audio. So you notice here, this is a video of something I did a couple months ago, conversations that decrease church morale. And when I uploaded the video to Descript, you see on the right hand side is the video, and then you see on the left hand side is the transcription. So it within minutes transcribed what I said. And not only did it transcribe what I said, if I were to go in to a particular area, a particular paragraph of text, as I highlight the text, it will clip the audio that's associated with that text. So it has a couple benefits. Number one, it will help because if all you want is a transcript and you want to use that in order to create an electronic book, PDF, if you want to copy and paste the text and put in a church bulletin or a newsletter, you can. It will separate the words in terms of transcription for the video. It can also be used for social media clips. And so if you see this video is about 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 47 seconds, if I want to clip just a minute or two from that close to 10-minute session, I can copy and paste the text that takes up to 2 minutes, and the video is attached to that text. So this is something that's a common use for churches and AI. You can have more conversation with your social media manager or technician, video tech person. They're using, if not Descript, something very similar to that. Another AI use is a website I use, and it's located at opus.pro. It's called Opus Clips, a very similar process. This is used more or less exclusively for social media clips that you want to have, but the idea behind it is you have a video and you can type within the search bar or the template area, hey, I'm looking for a particular keyword. So if you know there's a sermon or a Bible study that contains the word salvation, and maybe that's the theme, you can say, okay, Opus, I want you to find all the occurrences of the word salvation. And then you can tell it, hey, I want a 30-second clip, 1 minute clip, a minute and a half to 2 minute clip. And it gives you different options that you can use that you can then post on your social media site, on your website, et cetera. So again, those are two examples in terms of transcription and clips. So any thoughts so far about that? I know that Deborah mentioned something here, perhaps creating speaking points for meetings. Absolutely. That is an effective way of using AI. And it actually, you read my mind, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about and showing in just a minute or so. All right. Okay. Let's move here to, I'm going to walk us through something here. And one of the things that I really love is, so Marty says, I wonder whether pastors can create books by using the scripture. Yes, they can, Marty. They absolutely can. Pastors can use this transcription for books. There are a number of people that I'm aware of who would use things like Descript, websites like Descript, in order to create PDFs and to actually sell them on Amazon. In fact, that's one of the things I'm quietly working on. I'm compiling a number of different I'm transcribing a number of different videos and sermons and other lessons I've done to create books. So absolutely, absolutely. Well, the elephant in the room is ChatGPT. Now, there are other sources of AI, but I'm just going to go with ChatGPT for ease of use here. So what do I have here? This is a use case where it's interesting to Deborah, you mentioned earlier about speaker notes for Bible study or things of that nature. What I have done is I, within ChatGPT, have included this. I've typed this prompt. Create a 30-minute Bible study lesson for young adults based on the topic of spiritual maturity. Include 4 engaging questions. Okay, that's all I've typed. So using this, and by the way, ChatGPT is free. It will ask you to connect to a Google or Gmail account, and Gmail is free. So there are obviously options to pay a little bit more for some additional bells and whistles. But what I'm showing you is available on a free version of ChatGPT. So I'm going to click the plus button because I want to narrow it down a little bit. I'm going to select study and learn because I found that to be a little bit more of an effective way of having ChatGPT spit out information that will be applicable for a study guide. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And I'm going to hit the up arrow. I'm going to wait for a minute. And by minute, I mean less than a minute. And I want you to see, and we're talking what? That took less than 15 seconds, maybe. It created a theme, all right, growing up in Christ, a journey to spiritual maturity, a passage, Ephesians 4:11 through 16. By the way, if I already knew and wanted a particular passage, I could have included that in the information. It breaks down the entire 30-minute lesson from the opening, activities, a prompt, scripture questions, discussion questions, reflections, wrap up for prayer, key takeaways, etc. Now you might be saying, well, okay, but I really want to go into the Bible study myself. I don't want the AI to generate that. Here's how I will challenge that. I respect your thoughts behind that because you have a right to feel the way you do, but I'm going to challenge that mindset for a moment. Would you rather spend the time developing a lesson like this or digging deep into the lesson that's created to make it your own and to, like I said before, add that garlic salt, add that onion powder and oregano and paprika to it, to the point where you say, you know what, that's question number 1 discussion. What's the one area of your faith that feels grown up? I want to change that a little bit. I want to make it a little bit different. That's a good idea, but I thought of another one. I would rather spend time tweaking it and diving deep into it and not spending the amount of time to create the lesson. Now, here's another beauty behind this as well. This is information you can copy and paste and put it in a Google Doc or Microsoft Word, etc. But I love at the end where it asks the question, do you want this to be adapted as a study guide or for another group? Now, this is a nice way of the AI saying, do you want to narrow? Do you want to manipulate a little bit more? And I'm going to say, you know what? Create I can spell create. No, I'm going to change it. Format for a study guide. And I'm going to click this arrow here. And this takes just a little bit longer, but now you will have a study guide created. Now it's taking just a little bit longer to create here. And boom, there you go. Now, there are other options that you can have that will allow you to then put it in a Microsoft Word form, etc. But the possibilities are endless. Again, this is simply me typing in this script right here. You can manipulate that script or have that script say other things as well. So I've covered a couple of them so far. I'm going to save one for the end, but while I'm doing that, I want to see what your thoughts are. I want to see what you're thinking in terms of what you've seen so far. Let's see here. All right, Cheryl says, I'd rather create my own and use chat to provide suggestion. That's a great point, Cheryl, because again, the possibilities are endless. This is not a one size fits all. What I've done in the past is I have created questions, study guide questions, and I've asked ChatGPT to revise them. Here's another benefit of doing that as well. The revision process is also helpful for what in education we refer to it as differential learning, right? So I'm going to go back to what we did here. Say, for instance, this information is a little bit too mature, and I'm going to ask it create lesson for, let's just say, fifth graders. So maybe maybe you already have some information developed and you want it to add some other things to it or revise some things. You can actually have differential instruction as well. It's taking a little while to do it because it's kind of thinking there, but I think you get the idea that yes, you can copy and paste information in a previous lesson, work that you've done before, and absolutely have that revised information. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna look at another one. Oops. All right, now this is slowly but surely becoming my favorite. And this is Notebook LM. Notebook LM. How many of you, I'm curious, how many of you have accounts with audiobooks? You listen to audiobooks because you're exercising, you're on the road, you're doing different things, and you want to basically read without taking the time to read. Okay, so there are so many different benefits to this Notebook LM by Google. I want to walk you through just a couple of them that I've used in the past. In essence, what this is a way of synthesizing information so that you can digest it and use it in a number of different cases that simply involve a literal drag and drop of information. So I'm going to walk through really quickly something that I used Notebook LM to do. I created a PDF called Ditch Deal Delegate with regard to church leadership. I've already gone through this process to save time, but suffice to say, I had the PDF, I uploaded it, dragged and dropped it to this particular website, and here are the results. You have a number of different options. I love the audio review and video overview. Imagine having a 5-page, 10-page PDF document, and you really want to get a synthesis of that information. You can drag and drop that document, that PDF of 5 to 10 pages, into Notebook LM by Google, and it will create for you an audio and or video podcast from the information with AI generated voices, usually a male and female. And what will happen is they will have a conversation, almost like an interview situation, where they are summarizing and discussing the information in that document. So this is no different from you listening to a talking head interview a guest, and a transcript is created after that. This does it the opposite way. It reads the information on the PDF and then creates audio or video from that. Let's see here. You had a comment here. Yeah. Yep. Marty says my son used it in college sometime. It's amazing. It absolutely is amazing. Now, is it absolutely positively perfect? No, it's not. It's not the most perfect, but it will in fact save some time in terms of what you need to do if you want to overview. But here's something. Here's what I love about it. You ready for this? This still delegate. I created a mind map. So I want you to imagine you reading a document. I'm going to slide this over a little bit so you can see it better. Embracing ditch deal delegate principles, right? What each of these areas, each of these four ovals are the main headers. Within the PDF, I bold-faced major points. And so if I want to get a synopsis of this document, I now have it. It includes the purpose and benefits, struggles and prioritization, the first principle of ditch, then the second deal, the third delegate. But here's the crazy part. Here's the cool crazy. All right, I'm going to slide this over a little bit. I want to break this down. What are some of the points within the benefits and struggles with prioritization? I'm going to click this arrow and boom, it breaks out the sub points, if you will. All right, click this arrow, gets rid of them. Let's drag this up here. All right, what are some of the piece of information, main ideas from ditch deal delegate in terms of principle number one, ditch? Boom. Here's the main idea. Here's some main ideas. Now, I want you to imagine you're looking at a longer document, a larger document. I happen to be a visual learner. All right. And so for me, having an overview of what I'm going to read is helpful. And not only that, you can actually copy and paste this information as a picture and put it in a larger document. So if your church is reviewing documents, bylaws, job descriptions, etc., and you really, really, really want to see what's going on in a micro sort of way, you have this as a possibility. All right. All right. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I want to just touch upon a couple closing thoughts here. So what have we been talking about for our recap? We talked about different considerations in terms of AI use in the church. We talked about some of the benefits and some cautions you should have in terms of using AI as part of your church ministry. And in addition to that, what are some use cases? We looked at things like Script, and we looked at Opus Clip, we looked at ChatGPT, we looked at Notebook LM. Now, again, if these are overwhelming for you, the technology, as I said before, is a means to an end. Hopefully I pushed the needle. You're maybe coming over to my side in the sense of saying there are some legitimate reasons for using AI in your church ministry responsibilities. Yes, you can look at multiple different technologies and multiple use cases, but the foundation is there in order to address those things. So I'm curious, any additional thoughts or questions you have before we head out for today? I've really enjoyed our interactions, and I've enjoyed the feedback I've gotten there. It's been absolutely positively fantastic. So any additional thoughts? Are you in the okay, no way camp? Are you slid over? Have you switched sides if you're in a no way? Or hopefully I haven't dissuaded you from the okay to the no way. What are you thinking? Let me know. Let's see here. All right. So while you're thinking, I want to invite you to having a more frequent experience with me. A number of you signed up for the seminar, and I appreciate that. If you want to get more up-to-date news in terms of a newsletter that is on a bi-weekly basis that I send to keep you up to date in terms of church ministry or technology development, feel free to go to 365christcenteredleadership.com/newsletters, and you can subscribe to the Navigating Church Leadership and Culture newsletter that's devoted to helping church leaders grow in their responsibility and tasks. Our focus is on 3 areas, the first of which has to do with your church's purpose, your church's framework, as well as leadership development. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in here in the chat Here, I'm going to put in some information for you as well. Here for newsletters for information that you may want. And in addition, if you're interested in coaching, I will be more than happy to talk to you in terms of a 30-minute discovery call, complimentary coaching call, and also opportunities for one-on-one training. And feel free to sign up for that. And I'll put that information in the chat as well. You can go to 365christleadership.com and you'll find how to contact us there. And I'd be more than happy to walk through in much more detail the things we discussed today, as well as other topics of interest to you as a church leader. So again, thank you very much for showing up on today. I hope it was something that was worthwhile. I provided my contact information for you in the chat bar in terms of a website and social media handles as well. AI in the church, okay or no way. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. You all have a wonderful and fantastic, fantastic day.